Kia ora everybody, welcome back to a very special episode of Untidy Podcast. Normally I'd be introducing my radiant co-host Matilda Green, but Matilda, I've lent her out to Maddie McLean, and Matilda Green has quite a lot on her plate at the moment. She's also simultaneously not just taken on a full-time job, as she likes to remind us, but they're also deciding to sell their house at the same time with young kids, because why wouldn't you do that? Why stop there, So we discovered last week, we had a sort of like my cheese is gonna slide off my cracker situation, and we thought, let's not do it. Let's not do it. So today I should introduce myself. I'm Hannah Davison, mother of two, cat hostage to two, dog mother to one. I'm the co-founder and author of the My Big Moments children's books, and I am here today with a very special guest who is taking over for Maddie, Alice Soper. Welcome to the show.
Kia ora. It's funny. I know everyone who's listening is like, every time I think of Maddie, I think of Alice, so it's just so natural.
Right? Right? Like when we were like, do you know what? We can find someone just to slide straight into your shoes, Maddie. And the first person we thought of was Alice Soper.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm Alice. If you don't know me, I'm generally on a corner of the internet yelling about sports. So, you're forgiven. A lot of people aren't necessarily over there with me. That's cool. Yeah, I'm Alice. I love women's sports, in particular women's rugby. I speak about it most of the time, write about it as well. Other than that, I live in my house. We don't have any children here yet. We'll get into that, I'm sure, later on. But at this stage, it's just me and my lovely partner here in Wainui-o-Mata, the centre of the universe.
Beautiful. Are you hostage to any fur animals?
No. And this is a point of contention for my lovely partner, because she would very much love if there were the piddle patter of animal feet in this home. I'm allergic to cats, which as a lesbian feels like a disability. So we can't have cats in the house. And when it comes to dogs, my general line is, there's so much work, you may as well have a child.
And you know what, you're right, they are actually quite a lot of work. I mean, but you can leave them in the house unattended. You can just give them something to chew on and then wander off, and you can't do that with a kid.
Well, you can at a certain age. So.
At a certain age, yeah, at a certain age. Okay, so no pitter-patter of little feline toe beans for you. Although I've got a cat I'm more than happy to give you. His name is Toby. He shits in my plant pots when he's angry with me or when it's raining. But he is hypoallergenic.
Right, okay. Is that real? Or is that just good marketing?
I tell you what, you can pop to my place and rub your face in his belly and just see what happens. What do you reckon?
Yeah, we'll see. When I break out in the asthma, I get really bad asthma. You have to put me in the a steam shower afterwards.
Yeah, your throat's closing over. It wasn't worth checking.
Maybe not. Yeah, I know. Like I say, my partner is despairing about it because she grew up in a household full of animals, and her mother is still mad for them. She works volunteers at a bird rescue part of the time, dreams of retraining as a vet tech. So I'm quite the disappointment in that space, but that's all right. She forgives me. Yeah.
But do you make up for it in other areas? What's your elevator pitch?
Oh, as a partner? Oh, okay,
yeah.
To the family. Oh, well, my my partner jokes that she's doing land back via me because she's a beautiful wahine Māori, and I'm obviously a Pākehā New Zealander, if you have ever seen me in the real world. And so I am very fortunate in that I was able to buy my house a number of years ago, and she was like, well, I was never going to get into the property ladder, but I could get into you. So that was a tick in the box. I think other than that, for her dad and her koro, it was very fortunate that when we first started dating, I was actually hosting a interview series on Sky Sport at the time. So I was the first girl that she brought home. And so it was jarring for people initially, just because it's one thing to understand, but then kind of another thing to be like, I'm the visual representation of her queerness.
Yeah. So and remember that story she told you? Well, guess what? This is the result.
Yeah. It's not just a phase, it's a whole person. No, they're very chill, like with us now. This is not at all a thing. But initially a little bit just weren't sure, because I think, if you're a dad and you've got girls, you probably have played in your head, you're like, I know how I'm going to handle these boyfriends that come around. So he wasn't really sure. But then after realizing that, I was hosting that show, they were like, oh, we can just treat her like a boyfriend because we can talk to her about the sports.
Easy.
That makes it easy. Like these days, I would say I don't necessarily know a whole heap because I've really leaned into the specialty of women's sports, but like general broad
But you
brush
can keep up
beats.
with the banter, like
Oh yeah, I could talk about
you've got
1990s All Blacks, and that's all like older men seem to want to talk about. So
yeah. I
we're
mean,
golden.
are they the golden years?
I I mean, it depends who you ask. Men's
Yeah,
rugby
yeah, yeah.
professionalised in 1996, and so, they all got soft after then. But it's that, and it's also because like, I was such a little pick-me at high school. Because look, there was some things to figure out around my relationships with women. But at that time, it meant that I was like a real guy's girl. So I can also talk about cars. Like,
Nice.
that's why I no longer do that anymore. But like again, when it comes to small talk with men, or cars and rugby, it makes it easier.
Oh, well, you nailed it. At least you can go in there knowing you've got those cards to play and be like, well, a surprise might be a woman, but check this.
Yeah.
Have I got some chat for you?
Yeah, we contain multitudes. So yeah, no, we were all tickety boo there. So yeah, I guess that was the pitch, was sports in a house.
Nailed it.
Yeah.
What more can you want? And how long have you guys been together?
Coming up 5 years now.
Oh,
I know.
that's solid.
I know, not too bad. And she's my first girlfriend. Well, now she's my fiance. But yeah,
Wow.
they
I'm
that's
not
which
that
is
I'm not that great with guys. Like I do, like I've had to like date a lot of them and I
Oh
still
yeah.
haven't figured that out. I mean,
Oh
I was
yeah.
married for a long time as well. So, I did that for a while and then it's just been this like yeah, every now and again I do this sort of like dating corner and I tell really horrible stories about people that come and eat pizza and just abuse my house and decor and stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a big fan of the team Leave Your Husband, but for different reasons in my case.
Sure.
I
Yeah.
wasn't married though. No, look, I think it was easier when I started dating women because I'd been dating men since I was 15. And
So
so
you knew what that
generally,
was like. You know what I'm dealing
yeah.
with.
Yeah, and like people love talking about gender stereotypes, etc., etc. But honestly, having been in personal relationships with both men and women, it's just people at the end of the day. And so it's going to be like, yeah, there will be certain beats that people expect you to play. And so
Yeah.
that's easier for me personally in relationships with women. But like the types of men that I dated, they were pretty chill on that stuff most of the time anyway. Like, didn't really, and often felt the relief of not having to play up like macho man all the time.
Yeah.
So I think
It's
I
a bit
just like, what do you?
exhausting when
Yeah.
people have to feel like they've got to fulfill a role. That I just find that really off-putting because I'm like, well, where's your authenticity? Like, I just want to know who you are as a person. Like, I don't need you to be any particular thing. I don't want you to present in any particular way. I just want to know like who you are. And if someone's coming and they're just presenting this sort of facade, this sort of like a curated man to me, I'm like, well, I'm already put off.
Yeah, right. Or just like anytime they're just putting a bunch of expectations on you to put on some sort of performance. And
I
that,
don't
like,
know.
I have to say, like, as much as they say relationships with men, also relationships with women, because I'm a woman that has short hair and looks more like a butch, there is definitely a perception that then I'm like, I'll do the lawns and the bugs
I'll
and stuff.
open all the jars.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean,
what
I
is it?
definitely will. Like, you can't see the tattoo on my arm right now, but I do have a tattoo, which is a stack of chairs that says underneath it, "I am the strong boy your teacher asked for." So yes, like, definitely give me a jar. But bugs and like Chris, like that's my partner. If there is a spider, like that's her job, and she's 5 foot something nothing, and so that's her role. Though she's much more tough than me in a lot of ways, but just I have the packaging that suggests otherwise.
Oh God, it's the assumptions that we make to just get us into so much trouble.
Oh, absolutely.
But see, like I've described myself to some people as like devastatingly heterosexual, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I was born this way. Like I can't
Mm,
help it. I honestly would prefer to be a bit more fluid.
mhm.
I think I've had like 3 crushes on girls.
Okay, so you already are.
Well, but the thing is, I'm not sure about the first 2 because the first 2 were in high school, and I was like, was
Prime
it?
time, baby.
I know,
Prime
right?
time.
Well, if I'd lived in a different era,
Right.
then right, I would have actually been able to explore that, thought nothing of it.
Uh-huh.
But now I'm like, well, looking back, was it a crush or was I just envious because they were really good at stuff?
Yeah.
And I can't tell. But there was definitely, I had one proper girl crush.
Uh-huh.
I was real proud of myself because I was like, they're is a vibe.
Okay.
Like, there is a vibe. But I was married
Okay.
and, we were just passing at an event.
Mhm.
So I was like, well, but definitely a vibe. But it's
Okay.
never happened again.
Okay. Yeah, so we need to get you in a proximity for vibes to occur. I would just say, like, that's interesting, right? Like, all of that, like, I definitely find the way in which I'm attracted to women, it's different. And I think that there's lots to unpack there as to why it is. I think, like, if I look at it in hindsight now, I feel like the way I really was pretty, as you would call it, like, is it demisexual, I believe,
Yeah.
where you have to,
And
like, have the whole romance and narrative. I
yeah.
could not, and so this was, like, a thing that was really confusing when I started figuring out the woman stuff, because I was like, "Oh, I can sleep with a woman more easily and have it not mean something," which was
That's
confusing because it was
interesting.
like, "No, physically, this is more correct for me."
Yeah.
But, like, I could never really do casual sex with men because I had to have a whole internal dialogue because
You needed the connection.
the physical connection wasn't really
Wasn't
there.
there. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, like, I sometimes describe myself as demisexual
Mhm.
because, I mean, one, also, like, one-night stands with guys are generally pretty disappointing and mediocre, and you're like, "Just get out of my house," you know?
Yeah.
But I find that I really need connection
Mm.
for, like, strong attraction to happen.
Mhm.
Like, someone having cheese grater abs is not enough, you know?
Mm.
It's just
Mm.
not enough. And I don't know if that's just like I need that intellectual
Mhm.
connection where that spark happens. Is that because as women, the center of arousal was in the brain and I just
Mhm.
need that to happen first? I mean, people are still hot, but I'm like, they'll be hot and I'll be like, oh, they're hot, but I can't be bothered.
I feel like my thing has always been, like, if I see someone over there and they're hot, I'll be like, I can imagine making out with them, but, like, having sex with someone or, like, lusting after them if I know nothing about them, it's like, no, because there's a whole negotiation there around, like, what are you into that, like, requires I need to know a little bit of who you are, because even
Yeah.
if you are, like, aesthetically a type that I'd be into, if your vibe isn't it, like, this is not gonna work. Like, this is just
Yeah.
not gonna be a
Yeah.
nice time, and I think, like, I've said this to people before, like, particularly with straight women. I'm not one of these queer women that is, like, chasing after straight women. You do see that from time to
Do
time,
you?
and
Because I reckon that'd
yeah.
be like you. Are you just signing us up for like quite a lot of disappointing scenarios where they're like, oh well, I just wanted to try it, now I have, thanks.
I think that there's an element of it in the same way that you see a demographic of men who are constantly pursuing younger women. It's an inexperience that they're after, because then they're not held any type of accountable to their
Mm-hmm.
actions and their lack of emotional maturity.
Yeah.
That's my particular read.
Oh, look, and then they get to feel like they're in the position of authority, which makes
Yep.
them feel powerful, which tickles
Yep.
the ego.
Yep. And there's a real thing, and I have spoken to people about this too, like the heavy emotional attachment that there is to your first queer relationship. I often call it your validation ship, because there is
Love it.
something that is happening in there that is actually nothing to do with who you're with, and everything to do with you being in more alignment with yourself. And so that
Yeah.
can be, like, super intoxicating, and you do see people from time to time, that first relationship, they can become very vulnerable, and so you've really got to be careful that that person is a good person, because
Yeah.
there are some people that are just like I say, they're out there trying to find that inexperience, and that's what they're attracted to, and that's just weird, man. Go to therapy.
Oh, look, so many of the people that are out there dating actually just need a therapist, not a
Oh,
girlfriend.
please, please.
Yeah. And I've been that therapist so many times. And now I'm
Mm.
like, unless it's going to be dinner.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I love a project. God, I love seeing the potential.
Project.
I love seeing the potential in people, for fuck's
Oh,
sake.
same. And I'm really good at it. I don't do it anymore. I am cured.
Yeah.
I am absolutely cured of that. But there was a time
Oh,
when, because I do see who people are behind all of the shit that's layered on top of them. And I'm
yeah.
just like, oh, what a beautiful soul with a
Yeah.
whole fucked up system on top of them. But that I can bring them out. No, but I don't do that anymore. But I used to call it being like a Band-Aid bitch.
Oh, yeah.
Being a
Okay.
Band-Aid bitch or being a foster girlfriend. Because then
Okay.
like you end up being the one that fixes them. And they're like, hey, thanks, bye. And
Yep.
then they go and find themselves a girlfriend, and that girlfriend thinks that they've just like hit the jackpot. And you're like, you've got no idea what I was
Yeah,
dealing
the
with.
unpaid internship that you
Yeah,
put
yeah.
in on that project. You're like, wow, I really did some amazing work here. I mean, I've heard people say that too, right? Like if you are one of these chronic project pursuers, that often the thing you're really in love with is yourself in that dynamic, because when you're seeing the potential in them, what they're really seeing is who they are with you. That's a
Yeah.
reflection of all the gorgeous things you can bring into that
Yes,
dynamic, my
exactly.
friends.
You're bringing that out in them. Like,
Yeah,
that's not them, that's you.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It took me a time to get to that.
Mm,
Yeah,
mm.
definitely took me a time to get to that. But, I tell you what, like, divorce is a bullet train to personal growth,
Yeah.
because then look, you just go through so much figuring out, okay, well, how did I contribute to, the relationship not working? And that's quite confronting,
Mm-hmm.
particularly when you're like, oh, feel a bit ashamed,
Mm-hmm.
about some stuff. And then you go, well, I didn't really enjoy going through that whole experience. I'd like to avoid it in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go, okay, now I actually want to just like dredge out all of the shit in me and figure it out,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't want to, I'm done. I'm done with that. I don't want to do it anymore. And I want to have a really healthy relationship. The only way I can do that is to be healthy myself.
Yeah, look, Hannah, what you're describing there, I reckon that divorce is for straight women, what coming out is for queer women. Because it's like what both
Yes.
of them are stepping away from the lives we're expected to lead, right? Like both of
Yes.
them are around, like there is such, relationship scripts, but also life scripts
Yep.
for
Yep.
women.
Yep.
And we all do all the right things. And we're told that happiness is at the other end of this work. And so it's only when you're on that little conveyor belt of life, and the moment at which you choose to step off is when you get to decide the life that you actually get to build. And so,
Mhm.
yeah, a lot of the stuff you're talking about there is like, this is what, when you meet other queer folk and you're always talking about like the coming out process, because it's just coming into yourself rather than coming out of anything. It's coming
Yeah,
back in
right.
alignment with who you are. And from the conversations I've had with lovely divorce folks, it seemed to be a similar thing.
Yeah,
Like,
totally. And I think just classic growing up with that cookie cutter
mhm.
expectation of you do this and then you do this and then you do this and then you do this. So then you get, you're gonna meet someone around this age and you're gonna get married and you're gonna have kids and you're gonna have a house and you're gonna like go on holidays and you're gonna do, and then you do that stuff and then you go, at what point did I lose myself?
Mm, mhm.
And then when you come out of it and you kind of have to step out into a place where sometimes you are socially ostracized
Yep.
and you have to then face your fear of judgment, and sometimes you do face stigma, and I forget that divorced women get stigmatized.
I was raised by a divorced mum in the 90s. I know all about it, babe.
Yeah.
Like my solo mum, my mum and my dad split up when I was about 6 months old. And so we, lived in central Wellington. And my mum, as a solo mum at that time, firstly couldn't get a loan from the bank she'd been with since a teenager, because you're a single woman. Even though she's a teacher, she has an asset. So it was just,
And that's the
they're like,
90s,
no,
so that's
yeah,
horrifying.
this is the 1990s. So that was one part. The other part was the community that we lived in, because we lived in central Wellington, very much like, even though I don't think this is going to come as any great revelation to anyone, it was my dad that was the philanderer. And even though that's
Stop.
the case, my mum was treated like she was some sort of like on the prowl, gonna
Yeah.
come for your husbands. And it's like, babe, she does not want any of your husbands, because chances are they're kind of like dad, and she wants to kind of step out of that vibe.
100%.
But like, no, I remember, the thing that I heard for years when you were young, and I was like, get out of it, where they talk about like the broken home. And I was always like, no, like broken home, like the best thing my parents ever did was leave each other. Like, my parents, like my dad in particular, he grew up in a broken home. It just never broke apart. So he just
Mm.
stayed in there. Whereas like my parents separating, that break gave us all one, because it was never going to work between them. And they were such different people. And also they're products of their time. My mum was like 19 and my dad was 21 when they got married. Like, that's
Oh
just
my God,
stupid.
that's wild.
Don't do that. They grew up in Gore. I mean, it was
Okay, yeah,
the
enough said.
60s, 70s or whatever. Like, but like that stuff's crazy. Don't do that. Far out. If I was married to the dude I was with when I was 19,
Oh my God, what was he like?
oh, he was abusive in every sense
Oh,
of that. So like,
Actually, that
Yeah.
happened to me at 19.
Yeah. So, like, fuck that. I'm so
That!
yeah.
You know what? Here's the thing. If your brain hasn't finished developing its prefrontal cortex, don't make lifelong decisions.
Or just, like, don't make them before you're, like, fully out in the world. Like,
Yeah.
you, because at that age, you know, what, you've maybe been out of home not long.
No.
You haven't necessarily had many of the, again, the conveyor belt of life thing, right? You haven't really had to make any choices yet.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty big one in terms of who you might wanna ride along with. Because
And, like, what's the rush? Like, why are we made to feel like
honestly,
there's a rush? You
uh,
know, I remember when, about the time that I got engaged, like, I was looking around, friends were starting to get engaged and get married and stuff like that, and I'm like, "Oh," and there was a sense of pressure. Mind you, my grandmother told me and my sister, aged 23 and 26, that we were
mm,
on the shelf because it was a product of her generation, and we're like, oh, at that point, at least we're like, "Oh, steady on,"
yeah.
like, but yeah, there's that sense of, and I hope that, like, with my kids, I can give them the gift of being like, "You can live your life
Mhm.
any way you want.
Yep.
You don't have to make the same choices everyone else is making just because you're looking around, seeing patterns here and there. Like, you can just do what the next right thing is for you,
Mhm.
and you don't have to do that other thing. Like, you need to really figure out and be able to stand fully in who you are on your own
Mhm.
before you're gonna be any kind of partner to anyone else. Like, no one completes anybody."
Yes, I'm always of the school of thought that, like, yeah, there is no one. There's like point threes, there's point fives, there's point sevens, and so you're doing a rounding, and like how much rounding up or rounding down can you do to make that partnership work? Like, you have to think about it. But I think we just all need to throw out that idea that, like, there's any a failure attached to relationships, because it's like,
No.
you know, even if I think about, yeah, my parents, like, obviously they shouldn't have been together, but they, at one point, that was the right choice for them.
Yeah.
And
And that was the best choice they could make.
that was the best choice they could make. It worked for them in that they both wanted to get out of Gore, and they did, and they both got to spend time overseas, and that's what they wanted. And then when it came to how, like, they wanted to be doing the raising of their children, that's when they realized there was like a separation, and that's when they ultimately did. Just because something is correct right now doesn't mean it will be forever, and just because something is wrong right now doesn't mean it wasn't previously correct. I just think like, everything is so, like, pass, fail, whatever.
Mm.
It's like, no, sometimes relationships you have, and they might not have been long ones, were like deeply profound in other ways. Like,
Mhm.
I know that when if I'm reflecting on my relationships history, it hasn't always been like a length of time that has had the more profound impact
Oh,
on me
totally
and my
agree.
growth, you know? Like, I just think, can we throw that out? Like,
Yeah,
if we're
yes, okay, what else are we gonna throw out? Because I think that some of the most significant relationships that I've had in my life
mm,
have been some of the shortest ones,
yep.
but that triggered the greatest growth. They were really they really inspired a lot of growth just through, like, the fucking pain of it, you
Mhm.
know, and through what you learn.
Mm,
I also think that, like, when we talk about relationships failing,
mm.
often that's because, you hear the term like, "Oh, failed marriage."
Uh-huh.
But if people aren't married, you'd be like, "They broke up."
Right, yeah, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
The whole marriage thing can
Mm.
be a bit of an issue. And I agree with you. People and relationships have a relevance.
Mhm.
And there is a time when it's really relevant and
Mhm.
it's a good idea to be together and you're bringing value to one another and you're growing together and you're learning from one another. But when you lose the relevancy for what it's actually bringing to your life, have the courage to walk away if you need to.
Yeah, and this is replicable not just in, like, intimate partner relationships, but also friendships too, right?
Right?
Like
Harder
that.
to break up with friends though.
Yeah, I would say so. And most of the time we just do a ghost. We just
Yeah,
ghost
we
them, right?
just let the distance grow.
Yeah, I just think with a lot of it, at some point, yeah, you're either kind of growing together or growing apart, and that also happens within your friends groups. Like, my partner is a little younger than I, and so we both found, you know, once you kind of come up to the late 20s, early 30s, you have a real shed at that point. Because again, I
Yep.
think that at that point, people that you might have known from a proximity based friendship, really, because that might be like school or work setting or whatever it was, then you're now all out again, off the conveyor belt, out in the world. and like, what the heck are you up to? I don't want to be spending time with you. Or like the kid divide that then ends up happening. People that have their kids when they're younger, like they go fully into their family units as they have to at that
Mm.
age with young ones. And then they start coming out, and then the later wave of people go in. And like, it's all everyone kind of stepping in and out of each other's lives all the time. But I just think, yeah, if we
You
just
kind of have to let it flow though. Like,
yeah.
because I've had friends where we were really close at
Mhm.
school and then, close a bit after, then we sort of drifted apart, but then we would just like weave like a braided river,
Mm.
and there's people who are really significant in your life and maybe they're out of it for a while, but then maybe they come back together. And I just think like, you just kind of have to let it be fluid like that and leave the door open and not be, not feel obligated to people and not feel that people should be obligated to you
Mhm.
and just kind of like allow that flow to happen.
Yes. Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah, yeah. Also, don't always think it's so much about you. God, we love thinking it's
Oh,
always
we love
us.
it. We love it.
It's like sometimes people
What,
just
you
got
mean they
shit
might
going
have some
on.
shit going on?
Yeah, like fuck. They might just have. That's the thing. I've got a lot of siblings. I have, well, technically five, but I have three younger brothers. And the funny thing with all of them is like they all come to a point where they do or they don't realize, like, I'm actually, as the older sibling, and I did this to my two older sisters as well. They kind of saw me as like, you've got it all together. You don't have any internal world. It's just me and you're over there. And I expect you to have your shit together because mine isn't, because you're the older one. Right. And
Right.
so it's been very interesting as those brothers now have got older. I'm like, no, sometimes I'm going to be going through some stuff. So I'm not going to be available to do life coaching on you, bud. You're going to have to
Right.
hold that yourself and figure it out for a minute. And then we can come back. But there is definitely an expectation of a lack of an interior world. Like, no, we're all trying to figure it out. They can treat you as one dimensional because you're the older sibling, and so just don't have the respect for the interior world that exists. And I think, we probably all are aware of that as like children, having that realization about our parents at some point. But it's
Yeah.
quite interesting to me, I think, how long it takes in the sibling dynamic to realize the same.
Yeah, and I'm a younger sibling. My older
Aha.
sibling, there's two of us. She does listen to the show. Shout out Sarah. She was over here last night and she was actually saying to another friend, she was like, "Yeah, sometimes I come here for dinner, but sometimes I find that I have to cook it." And it's true. It's true.
Yeah. Those roles that you get into, like those family of origins, like you can find yourself reverting back all the time. I did have a conversation with one of my younger brothers over Christmas. Actually, he was like, "I kind of feel like I should be more allowed to say my own opinions rather than just like go with the flow all the time," because he's the baby and my mum's kids,
Right.
and it's like, yeah, you're allowed. We had a joke when he was a little kid that at dinner table he would have to put his hand up if he wanted to talk because we'd all just be going. But he has no problem talking now. Like that, he's a comedian by trade, comedy writer. But he was saying, I would quite like to be able to bring a more wholly dimensional person for himself too. So yeah, I don't know. That's
I
the
mean, it
second
seems
thing then.
reasonable. Seems
That,
reasonable, I guess.
yeah, so that's the second thing. Okay, number one was don't call relationships failures. Number two is
Yeah.
treat people like they have whole interior worlds that you don't presume to know about. There you go.
Yeah. And I tell you what, I've run into this problem before because we are looking out at the world through our own lens, colored by our own experiences, colored by how mentally well we are, how balanced we are, how, happy we are, whatever our natural attributes are. And also what our baseline is for kind of like values.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then like I've run into this problem before, particularly dating. I tell you what, if you want to experience personal growth, go dating. Like it will trigger everything in you
Mm.
and all the uncomfortable shit you've been avoiding. And like I've experienced this issue where I have become shocked by someone's choices and behaviors because you accidentally make the assumption that they're operating from the same baseline of values and experience and viewing the world through a similar lens to you
Yes.
than they actually are. And
Yeah.
and again, it's that like you haven't made allowance for whatever their inner experiences, whatever their inner world is, whatever their experiences are, whatever, way that they view and the world and the way they see themselves in the world and all of their narratives. And then you're just like, oh yeah, you don't know what you're dealing with another person. You don't know what their experience of living is.
Mm-hmm.
So, and sometimes I talk about when you die, like particularly when you think about
how long did it take for us to get to death?
I don't know.
Time. This is excellent. Go.
And we're going to look back to birth as well. So. But like, here's the thing: when you die, you're not taking anything with you, but the experience of the life that you've lived. So if you've been a bitter, cantankerous bastard, if that's how you've lived your life, feeling negative, complaining about other people, blaming other people, I don't know, just feeling really resentful of the world or scared of the world or any of that sort of dark stuff, that's the lens in which you've viewed and experienced the world. That's what you're taking with you. And as much as you can do things to make that a choice and to change the way that you experience the world, I think that's been a really motivating factor for me for dealing with the confronting stuff within myself that I've wanted to work on.
It's interesting you say that. Years ago, my friends and I, do you remember? I can't remember if it was Kylie or Kendall Jenner. Like there was everyone took the piss out of her because she was on an episode of Kardashians going, me and my friends have decided that this is the year of realizing things, right? And my friends and I at the time, lol, what a joke, but then have subsequently been like, oh, every year is the year of realizing things afterwards. And that like, yeah, it's constantly having to check and affirm. And like, I feel like my 20s, I was really quite fixated on like self-improvement as a thing, you know, whatever.
But how much
was.
Can you?
Yeah,
how
so
much
now
can you?
That's why my 30s, and I was having a catch up with my beautiful friend from high school, one of the few that I have held on to tightly. And we were talking about how our 30s have been more like, rather than self-improvement, self-acceptance. You're just going to have stuff. And for me as well, the like figuring out of I am so clearly neurodivergent and now understanding that and understanding, oh no, like those things are actually just hard for me. And the profound fear I had of my anger for years, now understanding that that's actually an overstimulation thing. And so
Interesting. Yeah.
Like I don't have that anymore because I am so much more in control of my environments and my loading on myself and not letting myself get overstimulated so I don't get to that distress as often. And it's so interesting. Like, man, I beat myself up for so long about that. I tried to do so many different things and it was like, no, that's actually just how my brain is wired.
Yeah. Oh, this is great. Alice, you've just created the perfect segue for me to talk about myself.
Gorgeous.
So I've just recently been diagnosed ADHD.
Oh, okay.
ADHD.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I figured.
Yeah,
Did you not? Yeah.
Other people had one of the realizations that I've just had recently, and my dear business partner Flicker Williams, we are like a married couple. Like she is one of my soulmates. We understand each other so well, and she just accepts me as I am. And I think one of the things that this diagnosis has given me is just a lot of that self-acceptance. And actually, because we are taught to mask, particularly women are real good at masking neurodiversity, like I don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah.
I'm not going to unleash my whole self on everybody because they're just going to be like, what are we dealing with? But you, like with her, I don't have to pretend that I'm not going to get to a part of a conversation where we're talking about business stuff and that I'm like not getting overwhelmed when I am, you know? And so we have conversations and I'm like, okay, I've now just hit my limit for what I can take on in this one conversation. I'm beginning to get overwhelmed and we're just going to carry that one over because I'm going to go now. Okay. And then I'll call her back like 40 minutes later, like, hey, I just had another idea. But it's so great because then I'm just like, I don't have to mask that shit anymore. I can just explain, okay, this is my experience, this is what's happening for me, so I'm actually not going to be effective anymore if I carry on.
It's the wild thing, like before I started to like pull the thread all the way to this point, the first kind of unraveling for me was in my relationship with my fiance, in that I was like, oh, she lets me just have like emotions and not have to have a reason.
That is nice.
I'm like, wow, it took me to this point to like be like, sometimes you just feel
Yeah,
like, no,
yeah.
fake. We got to rationalize it immediately. There's got to be some sort of explanation and why on this, And so that was like the first thing. And then realizing, yeah, for me, I don't know, like I don't have the money or the inclination actually to go through a formal diagnosis process. My instinct about myself, knowing other people in my whānau and where they've been landed, and there's only so many times you can be told that you're like that person and not probably also like their diagnosis, that for me it's probably a beautiful combo of ADHD and the autism together. And so like the understanding for me how much just flagging before I'd be like, I don't feel right, or I'm feeling a bit agitated and I'm not entirely sure, and so because I'm not entirely sure, I'm not allowed to be that because that's disruptive to people, and so I will pretend I'm fine, and so then I'll end up snapping at somebody.
Yeah.
And so now like I'm like, wow, it is crazy how much better I do just when I say to Bailey, my partner, hey, I'm just feeling weird. And so I'm just going to like, just give me some leeway over the next hour or whatever. And if I say that, I'm immediately fine.
Isn't that amazing?
It's just the permission to not have to do the mask, basically.
Yes.
And
It's
like,
a relief. It's
I
a
don't
real
have to
relief.
be in control of the vibe for 5 seconds. So we can just like, if I'm not bringing the full noise of it, wow, great. Okay, it's off. I don't have to do it. I can just be a little grumpy in the corner, and that's fine actually, because nobody can be this up all the frickin' time. But there is such an expectation from people, from the neurotypicals, that I can do this all the time. Like,
and like they need you to present like that because then that makes them feel comfortable.
Yep. If I ever, for some reason, am not what they have come to expect from me, that really throws everyone off. But it's like, nobody can be that all the time. Like,
No one can play their character all the time.
I mean, I've got a pretty good, like, my mask is very charming. Like, people love that guy. Fucking hell. What a charming guy that guy is. But like, not all the time, person,
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Sometimes I've just got nothing to say.
Yeah. I don't think that's ever me. I think I just like, I think it's not that I don't have something to say, it's that I know what people want me to say. And so that bores me. I'm like, oh, now you want me to, this is the point where you want me to have this conversation. Ugh, boring.
Yeah, right.
Say the line, Alice, say the line. You're like, oh, okay, I'll dance like the little monkey for you,
I mean, the great thing is, guys, we should probably say Alice Soper has this podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Would you like to tell us what the podcast is about?
Yeah, I should do that. Well, because, first of all, I think we first overlapped because I was actually hosting a different podcast last year, which was very fun.
Correct. Which is, by the way, multi-award winning.
Yeah.
Let's just say that, because they didn't give us an event, did they, Alice?
No,
we didn't get to put on anything nice and drink their booze and eat their food, and
I would have worn a really cool suit, But yeah, yes, and which was particularly cool because my podcast last year was one that was specialising on women's sports. So we interviewed 50 different women across different codes who represented New Zealand in their chosen sport. And so very cool that, given it's still a pathetic 28% of mainstream media coverage that's given to women's sports in this country, it was very cool that we won the best sports talk podcast, because it's dominated by men. Spoiler alert. Does that surprise anyone?
No.
We know men love microphones, but particularly when it comes to sports space. So very cool.
Very safe.
Very cool to have the women doing that. But this year, for those of you that don't know, is a Rugby World Cup year, and that is like my special interest. When I'm talking about how do I know I'm divergent, just ask me about the spreadsheets I've been keeping for like multiple years, just for no reason, just like documenting every reference I can find to like women's rugby in our archives of papers across the country. Like, why am I doing that? That's not normal people shit. Anyway, that tracks.
We need people like you and me to do this weird shit,
Yeah.
Otherwise it wouldn't be there.
Yeah. So so because it's a World Cup year, I knew And we had kind of come to a natural conclusion of that. We wanted to hit 50, we'd hit 50. I knew that this year it had to be all about giving the women's rugby full credit, which is the name of our podcast. And so I'm very lucky, and I get to have a co-host on that, which is nice, because last year I was hosting it on my own. So it's nice to have somebody to kind of bounce off. And that's the lovely Les Alder, who obviously was a former captain of the Black Ferns. And so we started by covering Super Rugby Opaki, because that's supposed to be the feeder for the Black Ferns. But did you know it was happening? Did you know it was on?
No.
Does anybody tell you that there's like a final this weekend? Like it's a secret. No, it isn't. There's so much cool stuff going on, and so
we just file women's sports away with tampons. Like,
honestly, yeah,
don't talk about it too
slip
loudly.
it up the sleeve and we sneak through the pub with it. I don't know, like, what are we doing? So no, we wanted to be really loud and on purpose, and like, yeah, there's unending amounts of things to talk about, and people want it. And it's entirely unsurprising in the way we know everything all the time. People want to talk and engage with it in a more meaningful way, because not only is there people obviously finding their way to women's sports, there was the great stat from the last Rugby World Cup final that 70% of those in attendance had never watched a game of rugby before. And this Aotearoa, the country that is mad for it. But so we know there is an opportunity to bring a whole bunch of new people in, but there's also all the diehards like me. Like, we have so many of the people that are the current players that we know listen and tell us they're part of their review routine now.
Love it.
And we've got, other players from overseas who are listening in, because they're desperate to know. They're going to be playing the World Cup. Black Ferns are defending their World Cup title. They want to know who might be in there. So they're stoked to have something that's giving them an insight. And then everyone else who's like, one of my favorite people, Jerry Paul, who played at the 1991 World Cup and is always sending me beautiful footage from like that time period, and she is one of the first people to like text me her 2 cents on whatever we discussed that week. So like, everybody wants to show the game the love it deserves, so that's just been like such a fun space to be able to get to do that.
Oh, it's so exciting. And like, I think it's going to be a massive podcast. I think it's going to be huge. So, okay. So what is the next thing coming up? Because like, I'm poor at following sports. The thing is, I'm all about the shared experience.
Yep.
If someone was like, hey, do you want to come over? We're watching the rugby. We're going to do this. I'm like, love it there. Because I'll just be riding on everyone's enthusiasm. I'll have a great time.
Yeah, gorgeous.
But would I seek it out? No, I've got quite a lot of shit on. But
yep.
I really want to back our team. Like, it's so exciting. World Cup players, champions, and it's happening again this year. For people like me, give us an intro for what we can expect.
So you are here at this point of the women's rugby viewing calendar. So if we're sitting here in like early April, Super Rugby Opaki is just coming to a close because they haven't made that competition a proper length yet. It's only 6 weeks, so it's not your fault that you missed it, because that is a ridiculous length of a competition.
How do they even have time to play one another?
Don't even get me started. That's like a whole long other conversation. If you want to understand that, listen to me and Les have a bitch about it every week on our podcast. Anyway, we are at this point. So April means that we're just kind of wrapping that up. We do, for the first time, have a crossover final that should be coming up on the 17th of April, which is going to be whoever wins the Super Rugby Opaki final. That's playing between the Auckland Blues and Matatu, who represent the South Island. Whoever wins that gets to play against the winner of the Super W, which is Australia's version of the Women's Super. So that'll be exciting, and that'll be played on the 17th. The hope is that is basically the tease of the most obvious thing that should come, which is a proper length season. And so that would allow that crossover from happening. So we finger cross about that next year, but in the meantime, we get excited about watching that match. Then we get very excited because the Black Ferns will be playing. So they have a thing called the Pacific 4 Series, and that kicks off in May. The first week of May, we're not playing. It's USA and Canada that play each other, because there's 4 teams that take part. Us, Canada, USA, and Australia. So yeah, North America starts first. They are in that first week, but the second week is when we finally get to play. And we will be playing a couple of these games here in New Zealand. So if you're based in Christchurch, I'm just bringing it up in front of me.
Go on.
Here you go. You actually get a chance to watch the Black Ferns in actions playing Canada Lucky you. And they're playing on the 17th of May. Now, that's a big deal game because
Oh my
Canada
God.
beat New Zealand last year for the first time during this series, and they will not want that to happen again. So
That's massive.
this
Why
is
don't
gonna,
we not? Where's the signage?
here I am,
Thank
a
you.
one-woman banner. Okay, so that's going to be playing at the Apollo Projects. The tickets are on sale now, so you can listen to this and look it up at the same time. It's a family-friendly 3:30 p.m. kickoff time.
Beautiful.
Christchurch always does quite well, actually, at hosting women's rugby. Like I say, Matatu, the franchise that's based, covers the whole of the South Island. They're probably one of the best at really getting in behind the game. So that's going to be exciting to get to see them there. So yeah, that one is down in Christchurch. But
That's
if
just
you're
unreal. Like the Black Ferns are playing in Christchurch in about 7 minutes, and no one knows.
yeah. I mean, the week before they're over in Australia, so that's we can just watch on TV. But
So,
then
and where is coverage? If we're not there, we want to watch on TV.
so chances are it'll be on Sky. We all cross our fingers and hope that they put it on Sky Open so that we can actually watch it without paying. But yeah, they will be otherwise on Sky Sports. So find a pub. They're much better these days at putting them on. Like the old days where I used to go into the pub and be like, "Can you put the women's rugby on, please?" And they'd be like, "Wow, there's some third string men's heartland bullshit."
Someone throwing a dart.
Yeah. So they aren't like that anymore. Like it's been in the last couple of years, it's been very rare that I've had someone not put it on for me. So go to your pub. It probably will already be on the screen. Have a look. That first one, Australia playing New Zealand. Now, in women's rugby, we have our own version like the Bledisloe Cup. So if you know anything about men's rugby, the Bledisloe Cup is the annual series that's played between Australia and New Zealand. New Zealand and Australia have the same thing within the women's game, and that's called the Laurie O'Reilly Cup. And Laurie O'Reilly was a very influential figure, not just in New Zealand women's rugby, but kind of world women's rugby. He was involved in Canterbury in the 1980s and in the formation of the modern day New Zealand team, and he was the first coach that took us over to that 91 World Cup. So he passed away in the mid he passed away in the mid 90s, and so just before actually the 98 World Cup, unfortunately, which was the first one that we won, so we didn't get to see us do that. But that's why they have that cup that's named in his honor, so we play for that against Australia every year. So that first game is happening on the 10th of May. It's a 5 p.m. kickoff for us here. So you're going to the pub to watch that. You're going to the one in Christchurch the following week on the Saturday afternoon, and then the one following week after that is New Zealand playing USA, and they're playing them up in North Harbour Stadium, so up in Auckland. Now that is another family-friendly time, a 3:30 kickoff as well, but that is going to hopefully feature the biggest star in rugby full stop at the moment, which is none other than Alona Ma. Now, you may have seen her on your timelines because she's the one that was just on Dancing with the Stars over in the US. She won a bronze medal with them at the Olympic Games in sevens, but has made her intention known that she wants to go to the 15s World Cup. So she's just converted herself over. She has a bigger social media following than the All Blacks and World Rugby combined. Like
wild. So is women's rugby in the States more celebrated in general?
It's very interesting.
Supporting women's rugby.
Okay, so the best traditionally, the ones that were like the first to have the best crowds turn up were actually France. I played over in England for a couple of seasons, and while I was there, I went to watch New Zealand play France in France because it wasn't too far, and there were like 19,000 people turned up and packed out a stadium in Grenoble, and I was like, wow. At that time, I was like, I'm never going to see this like again, like a full stadium. Little did I know that a couple of years later we would have Eden Park. But so the French really did it first, but England have been building amazing, right? And so it's very exciting that they're hosting this year's World Cup because they launched what is now the best domestic competition in the world. They launched that in 2017. I went and played in the first 2 seasons of that.
Oh, God, amazing. So who are you playing for?
You can, if you're watching this, there is the bottom of a jersey over here, which is the Richmond rugby jersey, which was a club in London. So played for them, and we'd travel around England and play teams in Liverpool and Exeter and what have you. And what they were then calling at that time Premiership 15s, it's now been rebranded as the PWR. But yeah, they are the benchmark. They are doing domestic rugby the best. So unsurprisingly, if you're doing domestic rugby awesome, then your top level team does better. And not only that, that league now is where many internationals from around the world go to play. So there's a lot of the US women's team that play in the PWR, a lot of the Canadians, Irish, Welsh, Scottish players all in there as well. And so that's just like, yeah, bigger than a big thing. And so because now that's been running since 2017, they've really put down those roots domestically to build an intentional audience, not for rugby, but for women's rugby, which is different and is great. And I love the heck out of it. And I don't really love men's rugby anymore because this thing over here is so gorgeous and fun.
And you know what? It's real exciting because we're good at it. I know
so
that, like, that's a very
it.
basic point of view, but I'm not going to lie. I like winning. And I like that we win.
And we've won. So how many World Cups has there been? 91, 94, 96, 2002, 2004, 2010, 2014, 17, 2021. How many is that? 9? We've won 6 out of 9, for goodness sake.
Holy shit.
And we didn't go to 94. So actually, we've won 6 out of 8. Like, only 2 that we haven't won.
And we're not the best at supporting it yet.
Honestly, catch up. So
okay, we've got homework to do. We've got homework to do, guys.
So we've got Pack 4, that's in May, and then there should hopefully be like some other matches because they'll need them to get ready for the World Cup that kicks off at the end of August. So there should be something else coming in June, July. There has to be. I know all the other countries got it sorted. So New Zealand Rugby, anytime you want to announce what's happening there, we'd be excited to know about it. Like, I know it's a bit tricky because it's April and who could possibly know what's happening in June, July? Maybe you.
I do. I know what I'm doing in June, July. And
hopefully watching some Black Ferns tests. Yes.
So, Alice, for you, I am going.
Yeah.
You have my word. I'm going to take the kids.
Oh, yay!
We're going to do it.
It'll be so cool. So, yeah, we're very excited. And so this time too, if people are fans of New Zealand Rugby Sevens, there are actually 7 women from that space that have said they want to make themselves available for selection into the Black Ferns 15s team. And so we will see them in action during this Pacific Force series. So that's going to be players like Stacey Waka, Teresa Setefano, Dice Valiafanga, Georgia Miller. Everyone's very excited to see her come and have a crack at 15s. So this is, like, competition is so hot right now to try and get, your spot in that squad because we only take, I think, 32 or something to the World Cup.
And I've got another stupid question.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask the stupid questions because I want everyone else to feel comfortable about the fact that they don't know as much as they should either. Where is it being held? Where is the World Cup being held?
In England. And it will be across England. So unlike us, when we hosted, we were in Auckland and Whangarei, they're all over the island. So I'm like, one of the weekends I'm really looking forward to is we're going to get to watch the Black Ferns play Ireland and Brighton in one of them. And I love Brighton. That's going to be so much fun. But the final is due to be held at Twickenham, which is huge because if we're talking about the growth of the game, you need to understand this is the first time any nation is hosting the World Cup like twice. So the last time they hosted the World Cup was in 2010. And at that time, such was the scale of the audience, they couldn't fill Twickenham. So instead they sold the Stoop, which is just outside of Twickenham, which is around maybe 14,000 packs. They have already sold out the final and we don't even know who's playing.
Wow. Okay, so where are we now? That's 15 years ago. That's in the space of 15 years. So how many people does Twickenham hold?
85,000.
Wow.
So if we're looking at the growth as well, at the last World Cup, it was a massive increase from the one before. So in 2017, this is the momentum around this thing is massive. So in 2017, the World Cup was held in Ireland. And at that time, across the entire tournament, around 47,000 people attended. When we held it here in New Zealand, we smashed that. It was just over 150,000 that attended across the tournament. Well, again, the pre-sales for the English tournament this year, 275,000 tickets have been sold. And not a minute played. And we know that as soon as a tournament starts, the energy builds and everyone will get amongst it. And so, these numbers are massive. It's the biggest thing ever. For the first time, they've had to ballot tickets. And so it's going to be so hot. And honestly, I know people who have missed out on the final. And I'm like, I've got my 2 tickets. I am
You're
so
going to be
pumped.
there.
Oh, hell yeah.
Oh, my God.
I don't know in what capacity. I'm just like, come on, surely someone needs to hire an enthusiastic New Zealander to like amp the game over there.
100%.
Or hopefully we can take our podcast. Like that's the other
Yes,
thing too. Because
too. Yeah. Has Les got her tickets?
well, Liz is pregnant at the moment, so I'm not
Oh, okay,
sure.
okay,
I'm
okay.
not sure
We've
when
got
the
a
baby
be a
drops.
timing situation here.
Yeah, not quite sure when baby drops because she did tell me, this is the thing. Once you've had one, the second one makes them, the third one makes themselves like very comfortable really quickly, right? So I was like, oh wow, when I saw her, I was like, oh, it must be so soon. She's like, no, like months away. The body's ready.
I know, the belly's just like, "Ugh, settle in, guys."
Yeah,
Oh my God, amazing. Well, we're gonna have to wrap up there. There's things that we haven't talked about.
I know.
Do you know what? And I think we should come back to it.
Okay.
Should we come back to it?
Yeah, we can come back to it.
Great, great. I'm super excited. I'm gonna get me and the kids tickets
Mm.
for Christchurch. And yeah, I think like get excited sooner than we otherwise get told to.
Mm.
Because otherwise it's like the World Cup is upon us and then suddenly we get interested.
Mhm.
But there's stuff to watch now.
Oh, so many exciting storylines. And really, yeah, if you're wanting to, you're not too late though, in terms of like the early build. The really one, if you're really wanting to like bandwagon, hook yourself onto the Black Ferns this year and then their build into the World Cup, the Pacific Four series is the place to start. And so there's going to be like so many storylines through that in terms of who's going to be pushing for what spot. There's going to be heartbreak for some players that we absolutely love. We've already seen during Super Rugby Opiki a couple of these young guns who have come out of nowhere, and people are talking about them as potential starters, which is unreal. These are women who are 18, 19 years old and have just come out of nowhere and are absolutely
Wow.
smashing it. Like, this is the thing. While there has been varying levels of energy meeting our talent in this country is undeniable, and that's what's been able to carry us this far for this long. And so the main thing we can do is try and meet that with the same type of enthusiasm that they bring out there in the field.
Yeah, 100%. And now we can listen to your podcast so we can actually
Yes.
school ourselves up on all of the stories, because I think, that's what hooks people in, right? Like it's easy to know stories about men's rugby and All Blacks and stuff like that because there's so much coverage in the
Mhm.
media, but because there's so little coverage about, women's sports in general, women's rugby and the stories that go with it, then it's, you don't have that same hook. And I think like for someone like me who's like, don't follow really a lot of sports, like just get the edge of things, the story's going to get me.
Yeah, we try and intentionally bring you along with us too. Like, my happiest thing that happened in the last week was there is a young woman who plays for the Auckland, sort of out of Auckland for the Blues, and it's her sister who like is a big fan of her sister, but is like learning about the game, right? And there was a like late change in the lineup for the Blues this weekend, so we just asked the question on our social pages, being like, "Who do you think is going to also cover halfback?" Because we can't see someone that has before. And like she replied to us and was like, "From listening to the podcast, I think it's going to be this person, and then this person is going to play here." And she was like, and I didn't even ask my sister that. And what was great was she was right. That's exactly what happened. And I was
That's
like,
awesome.
that's so cool. Like, she was like, yeah, from listening to you guys, I've been able to figure out like, oh yeah, that's probably the type of profile that do that there. So that's, what we're hoping to do too, is like give room for people who absolutely love it and give room for also people who are just figuring it out and
Yeah,
welcome
like
them in.
me.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool. Well, I'm pumped to get excited. Well, I tell you what, this show was a game of two halves, wasn't it?
Yeah. Relationships. Also, Alice, we'd
Rugby.
like to talk about rugby.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, Alice, thank you so much for stepping in for Maddie this week. And
So
yeah,
happy to.
we
Yeah.
need to have you back, because there was this whole conversation that we were like going to base the entire episode around. Have we got there?
No.
Not one bit. So
No.
we're going to get there.
Yes.
But thank you so much. It's just really fun to get to know you. We've just recently met.
Yeah.
Over the screen, one day in person. Yeah, and it's just really fun to get to know you and just like love the enthusiasm that you bring to what you do. Like when people are enthusiastic and excited about and passionate about stuff, you're immediately like, I want in. I'm
Yeah.
sold. I'm sold.
Yeah, for sure. Like whatever that thing is, right? Like
Yeah.
there's so much there's lots of rubbish in the world at the moment. So yeah, find the things, pockets of joy as well, right? And really lean in.
Yeah, totally. Oh, thank you so much. And everybody, thank you so much for listening. We love having you. Please send us DMs And hey, send some questions for Alice. Why not?
Yeah.
She's coming back.
Yeah, send all your like rugby questions that you've been too like whakamā to ask. Like
Yeah.
I explained the difference between like a long and a short arm penalty on a silly little TikTok a while ago, and various people have been very enthusiastic about that explanation. So yes, feel
That's a good
free
shout.
to ask any of those, and just like also the things that you could learn to say if you're around sports watching people, so that seems like you know.
Yes, this is what we need.
Yeah.
This is what we need. Yeah, because also I think part of the barrier sometimes is like
The language.
the language
Mm.
and really not being able to appreciate what you're looking at.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So maybe we need some like a starter pack.
yeah, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
That's
great.
another whole separate episode
I
now.
know. I know. We'll do another game of two halves in the next one.
Gorgeous. I look
Beautiful.
forward to it.
All right. Thanks, guys. Take care. We'll see you soon.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Untidy. If you enjoyed it, we'd love your support to keep making the show. The best thing you can do to help is subscribe by hitting follow in your podcast app and leaving us a little 5-star review. You can also now watch and subscribe on YouTube and check out how these millennials are keeping up with the cool kids on TikTok and the gram. Lastly, please share this podcast with your mates. It means that we can keep building this supportive community, keep giving you untidy episodes, and just keep doing what we love to do.
Don't forget to check out mybigmoments.com for kids' books that make your tricky job of parenting a whole lot easier. Untidy listeners get a discount at checkout, so just pop in Untidy for 10% off your order. Lastly, we would like to thank all of the good people who make this podcast possible. Flicker Williams and Joe Rocker at My Big Moments for the beautiful artwork and design, Maxine London Creative for editing this episode, and Lana Byrne for creating our social content. And to you, our listeners, Araha nui, take care. We'll see you soon.